Joining me now, I have technology editor for defenseone.com, Patrick Tucker. Pat, thanks for hopping on with me. I mean, you write about science and tech. That's your bread and butter. So what's your gut check about what's going on here?
Well, this bill, it's identical to a 2023 bill safeguarding the homeland from the threats posed by Unmanned Aircraft Systems Act of 2023. What it would have done is establish a pilot program so that law enforcement has jurisdiction to essentially take these drones out of the sky as needed, either by hijacking the signal between the drone and the operator, allowing law enforcement to steer the drone somewhere else, or blocking the signal.
Yeah.
So the drone basically crashes to the ground. That bill was supported by the Chamber of Commerce, very wide support, but didn't get anywhere. Senator Pohl says that what this bill would allow is government surveillance of private communications because, of course, operators use cellular frequencies to communicate with drones, to get live feed from the cameras, etc. So it really speaks to the fact that there are a lot of legal and domestic policy hurdles that stand in the way of an effective U.S. government law enforcement domestic agency response to this. Those are barriers that don't exist when the U.S. military has to defend bases from drones, either in the United States or other countries.
So yeah, and you just wrote a piece on that, right? I mean, because I think a lot of Americans are thinking to themselves, how are we not shooting these out of the sky right now? And you pointed it out in your most recent piece that America has the tools to take it down, but not the policy. In your eyes, does the policy need to be updated to keep up with the pace of this technology?
Well, I think that is the consensus of a lot of different folks, including businesses, because these drones have become incredibly disruptive. And there are a lot of safe ways to generally take them out of the sky or interrupt them and remove them safely. The absence of any legislation or policy change to allow the government to do that could lead to very unsafe situations where people are taking it upon themselves to attempt to remove these things using shotguns or rifles or whatever they have around. That's potentially far more unsafe. There are real questions about how to expand surveillance powers to law enforcement to allow them to take down these drones. But that seems to be something that could conceivably be handled and be part of the legislation. So it seems like it could be a good idea. There's certainly a lot of support for it. The absence of it could increase risks to public safety.
What camp are you in, Pat? I mean, are you in the camp that believes the government knows more than they're letting on, especially after talking to sources for your stories? Where do you stand?
Well, the government so far on this has been pretty straightforward about what they think of most of these things are. There are some instances where there might be something that hasn't been disclosed to the public. They chose a classified setting to have a briefing with the Senate the other day. But for the most part, we know these things aren't Chinese or Russian or Iranian, because otherwise the Defense Department would be in charge of taking them down, as they were with the Chinese drone that we saw.
But do we know that? Do you feel certain in that? That it's not at the hands of a foreign adversary?
I do. When you put the United States military in charge of something, they really like everybody to know that they're in charge, and they like to do a little bit better job than this. So we do know that in part because of the fact that the Defense Department isn't in charge of handling the situation. There's legislation now to speed efforts to and new capabilities and authorities to law enforcement. So it seems like that's probably the case. And if you look at the tips that have come in, the vast majority of them really are drone sightings that are domestic. Sometimes people reporting on law enforcement drones, sometimes people reporting on airplanes, sometimes people reporting on airplanes that are or coming in via flight paths, sometimes reporting on stars. So I'm not surprised at all that this is a reoccurring phenomenon where people are basically reporting things that they see, and now that everyone's looking, there's just going to be more sightings. So that it seems highly credible that this isn't something that's a foreign threat, because otherwise we would be hearing from the Pentagon a lot more about what they're doing about it, because when you put them in charge, they really like everyone to know that they're in charge.
That they're in charge, yeah, and they're handling it. Well, it's all eyes to the skies right now. I also imagine it's got to be somewhat frustrating to be tasked with writing about this every day, and there's not a whole lot of new revelations or answers. Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.